It's Saturday, October 9th, 2021. I'm watching in this United States emblem system a movie by the name of the first one that came on this morning was Dante's Peak. It's spelled Dantespeak. It came out in 1997. I did not see it then. It has reference within the United States system of something called Berne, Berne, which I don't have access to. I saw at the end of the movie a mention of it. Inside the movie, though, it was like old, what I would call old Hollywood, where almost like I've been to Universal Studios once, and they had like the stunt show where like you go on the set and like you can see the building like falls, but then like the building goes back up. Back in the day, there was some kind of craft where like you would build sets with and all sorts of things. They would paint them. I mean, it was a whole arts and crafts like department of amazing. And then they had film classes and all sorts of stuff. Not that I was part of it, but I know it existed. But you could tell it was a movie and in a quantitative state of, because now they have all computer animation and simulation. They've really taken the craft out and put it all on a computer generate, which now brings in a quantum mirror state of confusion of what's real. Did that happen already? Is it a real war? Is it a reference to war? Is it actually going on now? And it could incite panic. But the old Hollywood had references and some form of binding, if I remember correctly, in when we unplug. And inside that particular movie that you could tell was on a movie set. It had a very Jurassic Park feel as well. That movie also had the same old Hollywood feel of, you knew that it was a volcano, but it was, when the ash fell, it was a large particulate. It was a simulation that was in a situation that was thought through and directed in a certain way, in a certain format, and then played out on a set like compound or stage of some sort in an outdoor arena, in some studio whatever piece. And in that Dante's Peak reference, it had FEMA, FEMA, on one of the jackets. It had, Anthony pointed out at my 2012, my Mind Calendar Baby, pointed out it had the word sheriff on it. I didn't see that part, but it had FEMA. It made a reference to NASA, which is NASA. And then it had a reference, I think there was a reference to something else, and now I can't remember what it was, but there was 3 references in the movie. I think maybe it was FBI that kind of solidified the emergency management services for the purposes of something within the United States that they needed at a time before, like, to have a backdrop of a blue or green screen is one thing, in certain parts for effect, but to still have that real life, like cheesy, they say cheesy, kind of like building falling over, but you know that it was some kind of real structure that someone put time and effort and craft into, in Hollywood sets and things. Today's movies don't really have that feel. Then it went, the movies changed, and now I was watching a movie called The War with Grandpa. It came out in 2021. Robert De Niro's in it. Bronson was in, I don't know his full name, and I can't remember the woman. She looks like the woman from the Terminator, but that was 1997's movie. Today, the 2020 movie was Robert De Niro, War with Grandpa. But it's eerily reminiscent of, it has an American history book reference, some handwritten declaration of war with a secret warrior, and a secret soldier. And then it shows a rat eating through, oh, and when that was being written, a bat was flying in the attic. And the child had a football helmet on. And then it showed where you couldn't really see, kind of in a blind spot, a rat chewing through the electrical wire, which knocked out the lights to the boy who was writing the declaration. And then something, he gives it to his grandfather, and then his grandfather says something about there can't be collateral damage. You can't hurt your father's sister, something like that. I don't know what that was all about. That got confusing. But inside of it, there's psychological warfare and psyops mention, which this morning, incidentally, Linda comes up to me again and says, my children are coming this afternoon, my 3 boys. And so Linda says to me, she says, did you make a decision? I was like, decision about what? And she's like, about the vaccination. And I was like, what are you talking about? I mean, like, all of a sudden, she's on this kick, this psychological fucking trip and kick. I don't know who tuned the fucking radio station and who programmed her on Magical Machine with musical antenna of the Maori to, like, now be on this, like, fucking kick. I'm like, did you get your shot? She's like, yeah. I was like, good, then you're already immune, so what are you fucking, like, up my ass for? So now, I said no. So I said, I'm not going for it. I said, absolutely fucking not. So she goes, good. She's like, then you can't have food, you can't shower, you can't this, you can't that. And I'm like, is there, like, no, like, who do I go to for help on this one to make sure that I can get a shower? It seems a little ridiculous to have the police sit inside the house and ask them to come, I don't know if they would, but to babysit outside the door so I could at least get a shower. I mean, this is how disgusting and psychologically abusive New York has become. And I know that it's high advanced equipment messing with and it's psychologically damaging. Also, the television is like a mediator. Like, if you're going to have a war and you want to quell some of it and build up some of your strategic pieces, you put a mediator in. Well, somehow they took the mediator piece and then they started a war over equipment, studio, and what gets aired. And then that became a problem. And that's another secret quiet war with secret quiet soldiers nobody could figure out. But guess what? Real people get hurt, and it's really psychologically damaging when my mom is receiving messages from the atmosphere and the weather pattern manipulation, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, now she's up on some fucking high stilt about vaccinations. I ain't getting a fucking biologically engineered shot to save anyone, you fucking stupid, useless human species. I hope you all fucking die. I'm getting poisoned in a nuclear fallout shelter scenario when I go outside. I've got chemical residue on my skin. There's real hard evidence of weather pattern manipulation and what's going on in the local area. Plus, I've got psyops, psychological warfare, interfering with the innocent bystander being my parents' units, biological units, changing their scripts and coming at me with different scenarios that then I have to try to negotiate my way through. But it actually hurts real people because they wind up calling the real ambulance and then trying to psychologically put me in a real psychological prison with more pieces of shit in the local area that like people breaking so they have something to do, which is what I call the nursing profession. And then they are usually mixed up with the police, who like having 5 TVs in the fucking house and don't really give a shit. As long as they get video games, football, beer, and a TV in their house and don't have to go outside, then they're good to like do whatever they need for a paycheck. But great. That's the shitbag society I fucking live in. And I'm living within my means of trying to like ask for help outside. Because social help would be really great on stipend. I don't know why welfare receives so much money, and when I put in for social welfare benefits, I can't, it's almost like, I mean, I've contributed on bringing up and hand raising a few good points in thermodynamic crystals. I've got time, cetium, and sensation, and I've got a puzzle of time in Ruzel, showing the passage of time when there is no time in a storm. I've got Oort cloud, I've got debris field. I named the operation being the Great Grape, and then how it deteriorated when you took the G out of it. Simultaneously, I also finally have a connection to a memory, a real memory, sitting with Michael HEWSON in Patchogue, which is Patchogue Station, Patchogue, New York, 11772, in his home at Seder. And he showed me some kind of box. I think it was a cedar box, but it might have been a different wood. I'm not quite sure what the wood was. But he said that he actually etched the wood out himself, which I thought was amazing. I was so blown away by his individual talent that he was actually able to hand carve a solid piece of like wood and make the box. And he called it his gun box. Now, I thought that was interesting because I didn't want to touch it if there was, like, hand weaponry involved. But we did have a conversation between he and I about the box. For special purpose, which I cannot remember at this point, I just know there was a symbol on it that was important. He showed me, which I thought, I was so touched that he showed me, so I had a visual reference of him and I sitting on the couch together. And trying to come up with things to talk about. When you draw a blank, when you're with somebody that you really want to be with and like you just feel like they're the type of person where you could just melt into their chest and be safe forever, it's hard to sometimes come up with things and topics to talk about in this current New York environment where the Maori connection and the environment acclimate and the weather patterns being manipulated. So it's hard to, without an outside visual reference and source, an object to communicate about, it's hard to build construct and conversation, because I really don't have anything that comes to mind that I want to talk about up until 2009. I mean, there was really nothing I ever went through that was even slightly worth mentioning. So that happened. And I don't know where he disappeared to, but when I was being hammered by invisible science in physique before I drove myself to the Stony Brook location to ask for National Guard help, and after I went to the guard booth and the Suffolk County Police Station, where I called him from there, I then went to the hospital to ask for emergency help, not knowing quite what I would need. But then that disgusting group of Stony Brook University students, like they're all so wonderful in their medical degrees, you realize that you have a profession based on nothing. you've got some words that don't even make sense when you leave this country. People in Germany think you're crazy when you speak your psychological diagnosis because they know there's no such thing. That's when you know that you're really in trouble. When your home country keeps trying to hold on to a career field that doesn't exist. Nowhere in the natural world does psychology actually work. You're supposed to document the humans when they break. That is all. But unusual behavior is because of weather pattern manipulation and this disgusting need for computers and to build alternate scripts that they're feeding into a psyop system and making the humans fulfill these weird quantifiable destinations and destinies in order to satiate some other greater need, which is even more disgusting, in quantum mirrors and how does it quantifiably actually impact the society. There's a lot of collateral damage from where I'm looking in polymathematics, polyscience, where an irrational set still has ratio and rational numbers and is easily legend out, and statisticians can see where the ratios went wrong. And then when they break in or they break the irrational perimeter, then it becomes an even, at thermodynamic crystals, it becomes an even more disgusting. And then they get lost in their movie scripts. The real ones, in like when I walk out the door, like their real movie scripts of what they've grown up with in New York is really fucking scary. And then to turn on the TV and realize that none of that actually was put in place for emergency management and doesn't exist here in urban New York. There is no social network. You've created social dynamic in a sociopathic ideology in certain states, like the police have one, the fire department has one. They have social networks. But the regular average civilian who walks the street, like the people that you supposedly serve and protect, you're not protecting at all. In fact, you're so overly self-indulgent, you made bad decisions, and now we're getting punished, and when we come to talk about it, we're getting oppressed and quieted by the so-called emergency management team. That's what's really scary. I'm in Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. I'm star 1978, star 8378. I'm not at war with my grandfather, who is Antonin. I never met my grandfather, Clifford. I'm at war with the two psychological psyop tricks with the changing station and dial that makes my very real day-to-day life amongst Lou and Linda a psychological torture device. And it becomes dangerous when they then leave the current situation and dynamic between the two of us, and then they go out on script and they tell other humans their fucked up storyline and bring other humans into that reality that doesn't actually exist. And some things that they talk about never fucking happened, which is even more fucking scary.